From Wes Welker getting on the bad side of Bill Belichick, to Steve Smith Sr. taunting Aqib Talib. These are some of the biggest beefs in the NFL you might not have heard about. And first is Wes Welker and Bill Belichick. Wide receiver Wes played for a number of years with the New England Patriots. He even became the #1 receiving target for Tom Brady. Things went downhill when he dropped a pass during Super Bowl 56, which cost the Pats a Vince Lombardi trophy. The New England team decided not to retain him for the 2013 season, and Welker joined the Denver Broncos. In the very next season, Welker ran a pick on the Patriots cornerback Aqib Talib and ended up injuring him in the crash. Bill Belichick, who was the head coach of the New England team, talked about Wes's hit on Aqib, calling it one of the worst plays he'd ever seen. He said it was a deliberate play to take Talib out. In fact, Bill was so mad that he didn't even use Welker's name while talking about the play. Belichick's anger's something else. I mean, there's a reason people compare him to Darth Vader. So it was not a good idea to get on his bad side. Poor Wes. Luckily, both Welker and Belichick claim to have moved past this unfortunate incident, even though Bill doesn't seem to be the forgive and forget type. For Welker's sake, let's hope he doesn't get in any more trouble with the Darth Vader of the NFL. It must be pretty hard having a rivalry with someone who's better than you in every way. Which leads me to the next pair of NFL players who have it in for each other: Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. Having a competitive younger brother can be tough, especially when he isn't half as talented as you. After decades spent playing one-on-one games like wrestling and tug-of-war, the fraternal competition has to be at an all-time high. Now, Eli followed in his brother's footsteps when Peyton set out to become one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Well, the little brother didn't exactly have the same raw talent that Peyton did. He somehow managed to achieve much more success in the NFL. That's gotta sting for Peyton. Maybe that was the beginning of the sibling rivalry between the two. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure Peyton's happy that Eli Manning's won 2 Super Bowls and knocked down his arch-enemy Tom Brady. But it definitely bothers him that he has fewer championship rings than his little bro. Peyton has the stats, but the younger Manning brothers got the rings, which must make for a very awkward Thanksgiving dinner at the family house. But this fraternal rivalry isn't half as exciting as this next beef. That's right, I'm talking about Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Rodgers. Just thinking about the Detroit Lions defensive tackle fills me up with fear. With his imposing size and tremendous physical abilities, he can be a pretty dirty player. A fact that Aaron Rodgers is well aware of. Because, well, Ndamukong was a menace towards him, to be honest. Suh stepped on him in a meeting once, which nearly resulted in his suspension. Luckily, he was overturned on appeal. Rodgers' old defensive lineman Eric Dietrich Smith has a bone to pick with the linebacker too. In a 2011 game, Suh stomped on Smith's arm, after which he was thrown out of the game and suspended. Ouch, that sounds painful. Not as painful as when he stepped on an opponent's groin. Ndamukong, that's not how you play the game. In a poll conducted by the Sporting News, Suh was even voted the dirtiest player. No wonder no one in the NFL respects him. But Suh's rivalry with Aaron's just something else. Not only has the tackle roughed up Rodgers before, but he also taunted him by imitating the quarterback's signature celebration gesture. After he sacked the Green Bay backup, Matt Flynn, in a game where he tossed 6 touchdowns. Suh claims he's changed now, but I should probably ask Rodgers what he thinks. Speaking of physical violence in the field, how can I forget Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson? I'll never understand why football players resort to punching each other, especially considering the fact that punching a helmet can probably break your hand. 2 players who got into a fist fight on the field were Cortland Finnegan and the wide receiver Andre Johnson. Obviously, both players got kicked out of the game for fighting and weren't allowed to return after a couple of minutes. Because this isn't the WWE, and you're not allowed to begin boxing one another in the NFL. Duh. So, given their history, Andre probably enjoyed the time Detroit Lions runner Joique Bell bowled over Cortland like a traffic cone at a driving exam. And just like Johnson and Finnegan, here's two other players who had beef: Steve Smith Sr. and Aqib Talib. Steve, who played 16 seasons in the NFL, has been a pretty combatant wide receiver. He played primarily with the Carolina Panthers and then with the Baltimore Ravens. In this time, he developed a bit of a reputation because of his ferocious skills and intense attitude, which were packed into his 5'9" frame. This is why the Patriots' defensive cornerback, Talib, should have known better than to mess with him. If you come at a wild dog, he's going to attack back. And that's exactly what happened in this case as well. In a 2013 game between the Pats and the Panthers, a scuffle broke out on the field. When asked about what happened, Steve callously told the reporter that he'd have to ask Aqib because he didn't finish the game. Smith also told Talib to ice up, son. Ouch, that sounds like quite a burn. It even turned into an amusing meme back in the day. Smith didn't back down though. He took another shot at the entire New England defense and said that Ted Ginn Jr.'s TD was simply bad tackling. Smith didn't leave any opportunity to insult and taunt Aqib. Though as intense as all of these rivalries were, this video would be incomplete without me talking about this next one: Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Both men are two of the greatest to ever play the game, and luckily for fans, they played in the same era. Honestly, they're the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson of the NFL. This historic rivalry was forged in the days when Manning was with the Indianapolis Colts, while TB12 played quarterback for the New England Patriots. And this rivalry gave fans some pretty memorable moments to remember him by. Peyton has more passing records than Brady, but Tom's Super Bowl wins speak for themselves. The guys have both set impressive records, some of which are still unbreakable to this day. Tom Brady and the Sheriff went up against one another a total of 17 times. From the years 2001 to 2015, the two QBs met at least once every season, except 2002, 2008, and 2011. Their rivalry ran pretty deep, especially because they'd faced off so many times on the field. The two NFL stars met 5 times in the NFL playoffs. The Sheriff won 3 of these games and Brady won 2. Although Tom entered the NFL 2 whole years after Peyton, he managed to give the QB tough competition. Even after the Sheriff's retirement from the sport, Brady continued to buff up his stats. The two are, without a doubt, the best quarterbacks that the NFL has ever seen. It's only natural that they have a legendary rivalry. Though unlike most of the others on this list, this one was more about pure competitive spirit for the most part. That's all for the biggest beefs that the NFL has ever seen.